We've got a new king here in the UK. Look, they're putting his head on all the coins. Yeah, I'm not keen on that. Why ever not? I think it's because I just don't like change.
We've made it all the way to the king. This is our final video on the wands before we embark on our journey through the cups. And what a character we've got for the finale. The King of Wands likes to take charge of every situation that he's involved with. Obviously we've got that authority aspect just like with every other king in the tarot, but in the case of the wands we're talking about that passionate energy that's synonymous with the element of fire. Again, this doesn't have to refer specifically to a man, we're talking about anyone who's in a position of authority at that particular time. Rachel Pollack says a person might go through a Queen of Swords phase 1 month and move to a Knight of Cups the next, or experience both at once in different aspects of her life at that time. Alone of all the kings in the Waite Smith Tarot, we've got this one sitting in profile, although I wouldn't say he looks entirely comfortable. It's been said that the responsibilities of being such an important figure don't really sit too well with the concept of wands, which are all about action and drive. I think this is why it looks like he's about to leap up and start doing something at any moment. Waite says the king uplifts a flowering wand. It's not very flowering, is it?
Well, what were you expecting?
Well, at least a flower. Those are just leaves.
Well, you'll need a Ouija board if you want to complain to him.
And wears, like his 3 correspondences in the remaining suits, what is called a cap of maintenance beneath his crown. So this week I've found out that a cap of maintenance is not the hat that your plumber wears, but is actually a crimson velvet piece of headgear that's worn by posh people to show how important they are. Every day's a school day here at Kippy Towers, although Ange said it sounded like a hair enhancement system for gentlemen of a certain age.
What are you looking at?
Nothing. In the Thoth Tarot, Crowley decided to put knights where the king should be, just to keep things nice and simple for everybody. Milo Duquette puts this down to likening the court cards to a kind of cosmic fairy tale. He says his reason for doing so is Kabbalistic romance. Simply put, a knight is sexier than a king. I mean, that would depend on who the knight is, really. In the imagery of cosmic chivalry, the knight on horseback wins the queen, the old king's daughter, and replaces the old king on the throne. It does go much deeper than that, but it's beyond the scope of this video. Anyway, regardless of the title, we still find the cards in this position to be the sort of ultimate aspect of authority. As with all the Thoth cards in the suit of wands, we've got flames all over the place, together with a knight on horseback, who is seriously chainmailed and wearing a fiery cape that would put Rick Wakeman to shame. Crowley says he's a warrior in complete armour. On his helmet for a crest he wears a black horse. In his hand he bears a flaming torch, a flame also on his mantle, and upon the flames he rides. His steed is a black horse leaping. The Sforza and Marseille cards serve up exactly what you'd expect, although they don't exactly look like they're comfortable. The Marseille king definitely looks constipated, like he's hanging onto that wand thinking, come on, come on. The Solar Busker king is sitting on what appear to be 2 actual lions and pointing to something out of frame.
No way, man, check that out.
Where?
Haha, made you look, dickhead. Here is a tarot.
Yes.
Whose appearance announces unforeseen success.
Oh, great. When?
He doesn't say.
No, of course he doesn't.
The Hermetic title for the King of Wands is Lord of the Flame and the Lightning.
I think the Thoth card is pretty bang on when it comes to that title. Milo Duquette says Harris translates the Golden Dawn description into a magnificent and thrilling image that almost leaps off the card. Did I say leap? Explodes is perhaps a better word. Other titles for this one are King of the Spirits of Fire and King of the Salamanders. So we've got that fire lizard thing back with a vengeance this week. Not only do we have salamanders on his robe, but also a little one sitting next to him. It's a veritable salamander festival on this bad boy. Also, if you look at the lizards on his cape, you can see that they're chomping down on their own tails, just like the Ouroboros. This is taken as another symbol of maturity, as opposed to the knight. Rachel Pollack says, notice that the salamanders on his robe are shown with their tails in their mouths. The close circle means maturity and completion. Compare the image with the knight's shirt, where the tails and mouths do not meet.
The King of Wands corresponds to the zodiac signs Scorpio and Sagittarius.
So the 2 main creatures represented on this card are the lion and the salamander, which goes really well with the zodiac signs of Scorpio and Sagittarius. Okay, let's forget that bit for now. So we've talked before about how the kings, queens and knights rule 3 decans of the zodiac wheel, or a good 30 degrees worth. Now each star sign also takes up 30 degrees, so you'd assume that they'd be in charge of 1 zodiac sign each. But oh no, that would be way too simple. It turns out that the reason they go from one decan into another is due to the way that the states of matter are blended together in the universe. Crowley talks about this in the Book of Thoth. He says instead of assigning the 3 decans of each sign to one card, the influence begins with the last decan of one sign and continues to the second decan of the next. The reason for this is that in the realm of the elements, all things are mixed and confused. It certainly made me feel pretty mixed and confused, but that's why the chord cards have 2 zodiac signs each, except for the pages and princesses, who get 3. Milo Duquette calls it the Adopt a Neighbour's Decan program. Anyway, those 3 decans run from November the 13th to December the 12th, which means that Robert Kennedy, Frank Sinatra and Mary Queen of Scots were all kings of wands in terms of their birthday.
Taxi! King Arthur's close. Don't worry, I'll lose him at the lights.
The King of Wands resides in the world of Absolute and sits at the second Sephiroth of Chokhmah, together with the 2 of Wands. The name of this Sephiroth translates to wisdom.
So we're almost all the way back at the start of the tree. This is where all the kings live alongside the number 2s. Chokhmah is the second emanation on the Tree of Life and is associated with the divine masculine principle. It's considered to be the father Sephira as a counterpoint to the divine feminine, which we find in the mother Sephira of Binah on the opposite side of the tree. According to S.L.Macgregor Mathers, the name of the second Sephira is Chokhmah, wisdom, a masculine active potency, reflected from Keter. This Sephira is the active and evident father, to whom the mother is united.
The King of Wands herb is cinnamon, an immensely powerful all-rounder used for coldness, poor digestion and raising body temperature.
Ah! Help!
But what does it all mean?
So as with all the other cards in the Suit of Fire, the main focus of the king is the concepts of passion, action, creativity and inspiration. In this case, we're referring to these concepts from the point of view of someone in authority. Now, the context of the reading will dictate whether the king applies to you specifically or to someone else in a position of authority in your life. Waite says dark man, friendly, countryman, generally married, honest and conscientious. The card always signifies honesty and may mean news concerning an unexpected heritage to fall in before very long. There's been much talk of inheritances for this card. I'm not sure why, but it might be an idea to start sucking up to your elderly relatives. The Thoth version again leans heavily on the elemental aspect of the card. Crowley says the moral qualities appropriate to this figure are activity, generosity, fierceness, impetuosity, pride, impulsiveness, swiftness in unpredictable actions. So in this case, there's a bit more of a divide between the Waite Smith and the Thoth interpretations of the card, but it is still possible to put all of that together into a cohesive personality type. Rachel Pollack says he indicates a strong-minded person, able to dominate others by strength of will. A bit like 50 Shades of Tarot. Ow! At the same time, he shows the Wands energy controlled and turned into useful projects or long-term careers.
If this card comes after the number 20, inheritance from an American uncle or aunt.
But I don't have an American uncle or aunt. Do I? If any of my American viewers notice an old person who looks like me, can you let me know in the comments?
It warns you that your plans will be thwarted by a madman.
Well, that just sounds like the story of my life. The reverse card shows the King of Wands being tempered slightly, a bit like what you'd expect the fire to look like in a drizzle. So basically that would be any attempt at having a barbecue during a British summer. It's good news, bad news from Waite for the reverse card. He says good, but severe, austere, yet tolerant. Luckily, Rachel Pollack makes sense of this dichotomy. She says, reversed, we see that natural fire after it has encountered obstacles and defeats that might make a less forceful person cynical or frightened. Because he is the King of Wands, he does not lose his force, but becomes instead tempered, more understanding of others. So it can mean the dominating aspect of the card calming down and leaving us with a slightly more empathetic character. Again, Crowley doesn't mention reversal specifically in the Thoth Tarot, but he does talk about the negative aspect of each personality, so this just seems like the best section to talk about that. In the case of the king, he suggests that he could become somewhat hateful and blinkered. He says if wrongly energized, he is evil-minded, cruel, bigoted and brutal. He is in either case ill-fitted to carry on his action. He has no means of modifying it according to circumstances. This makes me think of a misuse of power, kind of like a dictator. It also puts me in mind of the Chariot back at number 7 in the Major Arcana, who despite being a symbol of triumph and victory, is also set into a block of stone to illustrate that he's set in his ways.
In the reverse, this card advises you that one of your friends will give you some advice, which you should follow. You know, if you run out of laundry detergent, you can just use normal dish soap.
The big takeaway for the King of Wands is the qualities of leadership, enthusiasm, and inspiration. These are all concepts that we can apply to any situation. In fact, sometimes it's ourselves that we need to take charge of. Pietro Aretino once said, "I am indeed a king because I know how to rule myself."
Thank you for joining us once again on Kippy's Quest. May the coming days bring you nobility and the inspiration to like this video and subscribe to our channel. God save the king!